and Washington County, so I just don't want them to forget about that too. Madam Speaker, in the words of Pericles of Athens, when he honored the fallen warriors of the Peloponnesian War in ancient Greece, he stated, and I quote, "I wish that the reputations of many brave men I will speak of were not to be imperiled in the mouth of a single individual, to stand or fall according as he spoke well or ill. And I apologize to all the elders, for I know a much more polished and dynamic leader should be here to present this bill and speak on your behalf. To all the fallen warriors and the few who are still left here. But given the tragedy of Hmong history, those children who were meant to be born to become these polished and dynamic leaders I speak of, they were the ones that did not make it. They lost their lives in the jungles of Laos, on the battlefield, and along the mighty Mekong River trying to escape to America. Now that these leaders are no longer available, it has fallen upon me and my fellow members here to get this amendment passed. And for us unworthy few who have been fortunate and privileged enough to live on and carry the Hmong name here in America. Today, my four colleagues of Hmong descent and myself here introduce this amendment to do what we can to soothe the restless spirits of America's secret war veterans and their families, to give them a day of recognition for their suffering and their sacrifices. And Madam Speaker, this amendment is of great significance and importance to a large segment of our community here in Minnesota. This amendment seeks to remind Americans and Minnesotans that the United States and this chamber is a country and legislative body that does not forget its friends, especially friends that fought alongside American soldiers for the values that this great nation stands for. To give a bit of a background on the importance of this amendment, on May 23, 1961, President John F. Kennedy introduced the small and relatively unknown country of Laos to the American public. President Kennedy detailed the growing conflict in Southeast Asia. And that conflict would soon culminate into what we all know as the Vietnam War. But little did the American public know that that same year, in 1961, the American CIA already began the training, the secret training, of what would amount to well over 35,000 Hmong soldiers in the northern mountains of Laos. Americans had chosen to support and train the Hmong because the Hmong tribe lived in the mountains that overlooked the supply lines of the communist forces. The Hmong warriors also fought a style of warfare that could counter the communist guerrilla insurgency inside Southeast Asia. However, more importantly, the Hmong and the Americans fought side by side for the shared values that we all have, the shared values that America represents, and that is freedom. Freedom from communism. And so for 14 years, from 1961 to 1975, the Hmong and the Americans fought the communists in Laos together. Unfortunately, on May 14, 1975, the overall command structure of the Hmong forces inside of Laos was terminated, and the Americans left Laos and Southeast Asia. The aftermath of May 14 resulted in the fall of Laos to communism and the systemic persecution of Hmong men, women, and children. The communist regime of Laos sought to punish the Hmong for fighting alongside their American friends and its allies, such as the Mien, Taidam, Lao Tung, and Khmu tribes. And soon, one Hmong village to the next was targeted for elimination. This eventually led to the mass exodus of well over 200,000 Hmong from Laos into neighboring Thailand and eventually here to America to follow their friends. And the Hmong veterans who fought alongside the American soldiers and pilots followed their American friends to start a new life in America after their lives in Laos were destroyed. And today, Madam Speaker, these few remaining warriors of the Hmong people seek to be recognized by the highest lords of the land in which they have chosen to build new roots. Today, Minnesota's 80,000 plus Hmong American residents each are the sons, daughters, wives, uncles, nephews, nieces, aunts, and widows of these warriors. They live throughout the four corners of Minnesota in varying numbers, and they seek your support for their warriors. And this bill comes before you, this House chamber, because this state is where these Minnesotans call home. They are not here to ask for money or a handout, but they are simply here to seek recognition that they sacrificed for. Members, with that, I hope that this amendment would be looked upon favorably so that May 14 will become a day of recognition and remembrance for Hmong veterans of the secret war in Laos, here in the great state of Minnesota, and that those who fought for America and shed blood to defend the values of this great country would be honored by all Minnesotans. Thank you.
There's an